Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Hiking My Feelings Virtual Campfire. My name is Sydney Williams, and you are here to help us build the Hiking My Feelings Wilderness Wellness Center. So up on the screen, you will see some information. This is a fundraiser for Hiking My Feelings. We are building the Wilderness Wellness Center up here on the mountain in Julian, California. And we've also set aside 10% of our proceeds to the American Diabetes Association. The ADA is on a mission to improve the lives of people living with type 1, type 2, and pre-diabetes. So no matter what kind of diabetes you may have, they're on a mission to find a cure and make your life a little bit easier. So we're donating 10% of the event proceeds to RAINN as well, which is the nation's largest anti-sexual violence organization. RAINN runs the sexual assault hotline. So if you are a survivor and you need someone to talk to, you need some resources, you're just looking for more information, you can get that at rainn.org. You can find their phone number there. They also have an online chat if talking to a human feels scary, because sometimes it does. So definitely check out ADA, RAINN, and us here. So I want to show you what we're raising money for while we're getting settled in here. So this is the phase 3. So this is the final version of what we're trying to build. We are working on, hang on just a moment. So we are working on building the phase 3, which right here is, the first phase is a 32-foot by 32-foot deck with a 24-foot diameter geodesic dome on top of it. That will be the Hiking My Feelings Community Center. So all of our online programming, education, wellness retreats, backpacking trips, day hikes, it's going to be our base camp for all the activities that we do here. And in this image, you can see there are more than one dome. So the additional phases of construction would be to build additional decks, so 24 by 24-foot decks, and then top those with 16-foot domes, which would serve as accommodations for our retreat participants. So that's what we're working towards. That's where your donations go. And tonight we have a great lineup. I'm really excited to introduce you to Kathryn Goetzke. She is the founder of IFRED, which is the International Foundation for Research and Education on Depression. She has been doing some incredible work around hope, resilience, and just a powerhouse of a woman. So I'm really excited for you guys to meet her. Kyle Smith is also here tonight. He's going to be joining us to talk about his Anthems for Addicts, as well as sing a few songs for us. So he had a rough few years in Long Beach. And once he got clean and sober, he started singing, and he says that reggae music saved his life. I say hiking saved mine, so it's all good. And we also have Melissa Geissinger here. She is legit one of my favorite humans. We met on tour last year in Santa Rosa, and we shut down the REI parking lot, jamming in the van, just talking about life. And Melissa has an incredible story. She has survived some of the most outrageous things I've ever heard of, as far as like a list of things to get through. One of which being she lost everything she owns, her entire home and everything in it burned down a few years ago in one of the California wildfires. So one of the things that Melissa and I were talking about, and one of the greatest gifts I got on the tour last year, was this concept of like being able to exhale after trauma and what it feels like to walk around holding your breath, literally and proverbially, after surviving some traumatic events. So really excited to bring Melissa on as well. And tonight I'm going to be reading from this chapter 13. If you're following along, yesterday at the end of chapter 12, I was getting ready to go hike the Trans-Catalina Trail for the second time. So I had just quit my agency job back in January. I had left the startup that I joined 90 days after that. And so now it's June 2018. Chapter 13 is called Hot Sage. It's named after the way Catalina Island smells in the summer while you're hiking. It literally just smells like hot sage plants everywhere you walk. So that's the inspiration for the title chapter. If you are listening to, or if you're reading along, we're starting on page 163. So this is Hot Sage, chapter 13. The drive up to Long Beach was uneventful, and traffic wasn't nearly as bad as it was the last time we drove to Catalina. We stayed with the same friends we did before the first trip. This time, they had twin babies on the way. We hopped in the car and went to a restaurant near their old house, the one we used to party at back when we were all still skydiving. We took turns filling in the gaps between what we post on social media and what else happened in our lives over the past few months, had a quick dinner, and returned to the house to crash before our early start. We filled up our water bladders for the next day, set out our hiking clothes, scheduled a Lyft to pick us up, set our alarms, and went to bed. I woke up to my phone vibrating. It was the Lyft driver. He was outside. Shit. We missed our alarm. I told the Lyft driver we'd be right down and asked him to wait for us. I woke up Barry, and it was a mad dash to get into our hiking clothes, gather our belongings, and make our way downstairs. By the time we got there, the driver had already left. I opened the app to catch another ride. Our ferry was at 6 a.m. This was not the way I wanted to start the trip. The minutes that passed between requesting the ride and when our driver actually showed up were some of the longest minutes of my life. When the driver got there, we put our backpacks in the back, sat down, and buckled up. I see you're headed to the ferry. What's up with the backpacks? He asked. Yes, we're supposed to catch the 6 a.m. ferry so we can hike across the island this week. We missed our first ride, so if you can get us there in time, I'd seriously love you forever, man. You got it, he said as the car accelerated. A few minutes passed by before he spoke up again. So hiking across the island, huh? That sounds awesome. If I wanted to do something like that, I'd have to go with one of my buddies. How cool that you guys get to do this together. You're so lucky. I put my hand on Barry's knee and shot him a look. Babe, we're so lucky, I cooed. Barry smiled and rolled his eyes. We made it to the ferry in time to get to the restroom and get in line to board the ferry. We scanned the line and didn't see very many backpackers. As if on cue, a guy behind us asked us if we were hiking the TCT. Yes, indeed, it's our second time. I was a walking exclamation point with my early bird enthusiasm. Everything was exciting. We made it to the ferry on time. I'm waiting in line. It's not going anywhere without me. Life is good, and this trip has officially begun. When is your first trip? He asked. December 2016, between Christmas and New Year's. Ah, yes, the RAINN event, he said, referring to the downpour we experienced the second night in Little Harbor. Barry and I both laughed. Yeah, that was brutal, Barry said. The guy behind us continued. Well, they've made some changes to the trail since then, more shade structures, more restrooms, and some rerouting at different points along the trail. He introduced himself as an employee of the Catalina Island Company, the parent company for mostly everything on the island as far as hospitality is concerned. We chatted for a few more minutes, and a big group of backpackers got in line behind us. Our new friend let us know that they hosted a Trans-Catalina trail trip, and he said it was super luxurious as far as backpacking goes. They did the trail in 3 days versus our 6-day itinerary, but they set up your camp for you, cook your meals for you, and haul your gear. All you have to do is walk and carry a backpack with snacks and water. Well, that sounds like the perfect environment for hiking my feelings, I thought to myself. The line started to move. It was time to go. Enjoy your hike, he said as we started to board the ferry. Once on board, Barry and I dropped off our bags and made our way to the back deck. The sun was starting to rise, and we wanted to get some good pictures on the way to the harbor from Avalon. As we motored out of the harbor, I was flooded with memories of our first trip when we first moved to Southern California. Once we started picking up speed toward the island, I saw a ship in the distance, and I smiled. I snapped a few photos for my dad and vowed to remember to send them to him after the trip. We got to the island, and the buzz was the same. We grabbed our bags, started making our way through town, and tried not to get lost this time. We passed the mile 1 marker by the golf course when we heard someone shouting. There was a golfer on the green asking us what we were doing with the backpacks. We informed him that we're hiking across the island, and he was floored. Wait, what? You can hike across the whole island? You've inspired me. I'm going to do that, he shouted from the other side of the fence. I looked at Barry and laughed. Babe, we're lucky, we're inspiring. What else is possible here? We made our way past the golf course to Hermit Gulch, the campground at the start of the trail. We double-checked water, put on sunscreen, moved snacks around to be easily accessible, and went to the bathroom. I grabbed a Planet Green Sock sticker and put it on the trash can. Adam is with us on this trip too, I thought to myself. I checked my blood sugar, and it was a bit higher than I'd like for it to be at that hour, but with all the stress that morning, to be expected. I put my glucometer back in my bag, we geared up again, and started making our way out of Hermit Gulch. We should totally come a day early next time we do this trail, camp here, and then wake up and roll out, I said. I started the morning in a flurry of stress, and missed rides was not my ideal way to kick off this trip, but I had already shaken that off. Point was, it's an early start no matter how you slice it, and this first day on the trail is the hardest. I already knew that much. It was a gorgeous day, mid-60s at the start of the hike, with temperatures forecasted to be in the mid-70s to low 80s all week. Not a drop of rain in sight. I paused to take a sip of water and look around. This spot looks really familiar. I closed my eyes and opened them up again. Yep, this is the place where I had to tape up my hotspot on the first trip. Now that I had a bit more experience with this hiking thing, I pulled out my tracking app. I thought for sure it was at least an hour and a half or 2 hours before I had to pull over the last time. Distance, 0.25 miles. I called ahead to Barry. Babe, this is where we had to pull over last night. Guess how far we are? Silence. We're a 1/4 mile in. I heard laughter and I could see him shaking his head. I had asked myself before we started this journey, what would be possible if the hike itself wasn't the hard part? I was starting to think, maybe I was psychic after all. We kept trucking up the switchbacks and made it to the first shade structure. I looked at Barry and he took his pack off. He's lost weight. He looks incredible. He's like a billy goat of these switchbacks, and I'm keeping up just fine. This is a different hike, that's for sure. We sucked down water, I reapplied sunscreen, and I busted out my DSLR. I didn't want my camera to become the tarot cards of the first trip, so I took it out and snapped pictures every chance I could. We packed up and kept going. The stretch after the first shade structure was mostly flat, but I knew it was coming. On the flat parts of the trail, the hiking was quiet and mindless, just the way I like it. It was a beautiful day for hiking. The sun was shining, birds were singing, a nice light breeze was blowing when we came around the bend to face the ocean. Life was good. As we passed the place where I took the first full body shot on the first trip, I started crying. We made our way through the gate that warned you about bison territory and descended into a canyon with fields of sage as far as the eye could see. I remember this section from the first hike. And as we made our way further into the canyon, as the day wore on, the plants started to heat up. Every once in a while, I'd catch a breeze, and with it, a whiff of sage. Babe, it smells like sage, like hot sage, I shouted ahead to Barry. After a nice cruise through some of the canyon floor, we started to climb out of that canyon and into the next. As we did, Barry shouted back to me, shifting down a gear. He says this every time the trail gets steeper, and it's one of my favorite things and also drives me crazy. It's my favorite because he does it and it's adorable, and I always pretend like I'm driving a stick shift and motion my hand as if I'm shifting down. It drives me crazy because he's usually a good bit ahead of me, and I could be in the middle of feeling really awesome, but the second the idea of a steeper climb enters my awareness, my whole body slumps a bit. In this case, when he called back, I was already stopped. I had my hands on my knees, silently screaming as tears were pouring down my face. Here's the rabbit hole I went down after smelling the sage. The whiff of sage I caught smelled delicious and potent. My brain made the jump to my Uncle Mike, who died in 2014. He used to split his time between New York and San Francisco, and for the holidays, sometimes he'd come back to Kansas and surprise everyone. On one particular Christmas, Mike was staying with us at our house. He took over my sister's room, and when he left, her room reeked of clove cigarettes. I thought it was so rude that he'd smoke in the house, but Dad later told us that he was smoking weed and that cloves masked the smell. Followed that memory as far as it would go. All of Mike's business ventures, his creativity, his spirit, his singing voice. I hadn't really had a chance to properly grieve his death. He was a ward of the state and died in a hospice house. There was no funeral. My aunt got his remains and sent some of them to my dad in an aluminum resealable Coca-Cola bottle. That was it. This beautiful bright light was reduced to ashes in a soda bottle. I thought of all the times Mike's creativity was spoken of in a negative way. For most of my adult life, my father had referred to my uncle as a beacon of hope for the gay community, while also reminding us to go to college, get degrees, and get real jobs. That a life of creativity and performing wasn't going to make us happy because we wouldn't have money. It was almost like we were supposed to embody Mike's spirit, but cut our creativity off at the knees. I looked up to Barry, still killed over with my hands on my knees. I waved, signaling I was okay. By now, Barry was well aware of what can happen with me on the trail. He's seen this before. I reassured him that I was fine and told him not to wait for me, that I needed a minute. He kept going and I stayed where I was. I let it all out. I had an experience like this on the first trek across the island. This felt more like an exorcism than anything I had control over. Screaming silently with nothing coming out, like when I was in the shower during a panic attack. Like when we found out Chris died and I crumpled up on the kitchen floor, and then when we were driving to the drop zone after we found out he had killed himself. It felt like when I finally heard back about Adam and got confirmation that he was dead. Standing, keeled over on this trail, it felt like I was having an out-of-body experience, remembering where I was when I found out that all of my friends had died. I was at LA Fitness for Jonathan, in the kitchen for Chris, driving when we got the text about Stephanie, reeling from Graham's death when we found out that Tom died, on the drop zone when they found Marius, on the DZ when Ken died, at the dinner when Larry died, sitting on the steps when we heard about Avishai, blow after blow after blow. At the beginning of this book, I shared that I lost a few folks in 2014, but in the 4 years that I was a skydiver, 23 of my friends died. In this moment, on the trail, I moved the grief all the way out of my body for every single one of them. When I resumed hiking, I thought about each person individually. What was my favorite memory with them? What did they mean to me? How could I keep their legacy alive? I spent most of my time looking at the ground, picking my head up every so often to see what was coming and make sure I could still see Barry. For miles, I hiked and processed and remembered and cried and threw up and dry heaved and laughed and keeled over like I had earlier, silently screaming with my head between my knees as if braced for impact. When I looked up again, I saw the playground coming into view, our halfway point. I picked up the pace and tried to catch up to Barry, feeling lighter in my shoes. When we got to the playground, I slung my pack off my shoulders and grabbed my glucometer from the top packet. My blood sugar was a little elevated earlier, and I attributed it to the stress of missing my alarm and the first lift. I had been concerned about my nutrition and hydration for this trip, and this was the first time I checked my blood sugar to see since we got on the trail. I unzipped my glucometer, picked a test strip out of the container, and inserted it into the top of the device. While it turned on, I took the finger pricking component, put my thumb on the button that cocks the lancet, drew it back until it clicked, and pricked my finger. The blood had no trouble coming through the skin. I was bleeding like a stuck pig. I put a drop on the test strip and closed my eyes. Please be good, please be good, please be good. It would be so nice to not have to worry about my blood sugar on this trip. My reading came back. It was perfect. I breathed a sigh of relief and showed Barry. That's great, baby, congratulations. I turned off the glucometer, put it back in its case, and put the case back in my bag. I took off my shirt, grabbed my water bladder, and made my way over to the faucet to fill it up. The last time we were here, it was just me and Barry. I got on the swings and did everything I could to delay so I could cool down and give my legs a break. This time, I felt incredible. I skipped over to the water fountain and started filling up my bladder. Behind me was a group of people. As I filled up my water, it hit me. I was standing at the faucet in my trail runners, trekking tights, a sports bra, and no shirt. Sydney Williams doesn't run around with her shirt off. I may have been a cheerleader, a gymnast, an athlete, but my stomach is the part of my body that I was most self-conscious about, the part of my body that was always covered up. What was happening here? I felt like I must have blacked out after the good blood sugar reading, because here I was in all of my shirtless glory, feeling the breeze blow against my bare skin on my belly for possibly the first time in my entire life. It was such a strange sensation to feel my body cooling down naturally. As the breeze caressed my sweaty back, I felt chills run up and down my spine. I made my way over to where we dropped off our stuff, put my bladder back in my bag, and went to sit on a bench to consider what just happened. As I sat down and stretched out, I tried to make sense of what was happening here. Okay, so no blisters, that's good. Blood sugar's on point, water is full. I cried a lot back there. Sitting here, I feel lighter. I've got an extra pep in my step. I'm not wearing a shirt and I'm not running to hide my body or cover up. How is that possible? I thought of all the things I've passed on for fear of my body being seen. My high school reunion, fun trips to the beach, wearing clothes appropriate for the weather or season, shorts and tank tops specifically. What happened here? Yeah, I lost the weight, but I don't think that's it. Last time I was here, it was just me and Barry, so there's no reason I shouldn't have taken off my shirt then, but I didn't. I wasn't sure what was happening here, but I was eager to get to the campground so I could write some more and see if I could connect the dots. Barry didn't have to tap his wrist this time. As I finished some of my electrolyte chews, I geared up and we hit the trail again. I knew we had at least one more big climb, the one where I had to stop every 4 steps on our last hike on this island. I was looking forward to it. I wanted to see how different it felt. We hiked through more sage fields, took a break at one shady spot on this portion of the trail to suck down more water, and before I knew it, we were looking up at the last tough climb. Last time I did this section of the trail, we got lapped by people we had never even seen on the hike before. This time, we knew we were ahead of the group we ran into at the playground, but we hadn't seen anyone else yet. I looked at the hill, checked my shoelaces, and made sure my gear was comfortable. It was go time. I made my way up the last switchbacks, remembering how last time I was dragging my leg and literally chanting right foot, left foot. I started out a bit aggressively, thinking I could maintain that pace. I was wrong. I slowed down and remembered my core desired feelings: generous, grounded, joy. Generous, I said, taking a step. In this next chapter of my life, I want to feel generous with my time and talent. Grounded, I said, taking another step. I wanted to prioritize feeling grounded. What helps me achieve that sense of calm that I so desire in my life? Joy, I said, taking another step. I wanted to prioritize joy. I wanted to say yes more, and I wanted to bring joy to others. This time, I could only take about 10 or 12 steps before I needed to pause and catch my breath. A marked improvement over the 3 to 4 steps I could take before I felt like I was going to vomit. I kept my mantra going even after the hard part was over. Generous, grounded, joy. Generous, grounded, joy. I could see the campground. I was so hot, I was ready to take this shirt off again, put my head under the faucet at the campsite and cool all the way down. When I saw our campsite, I started skipping. I could go to the bathroom. I could eat. I'm so excited to sleep. I wonder what time it is. We slung our packs off our shoulders onto the bench of the picnic table. I grabbed my Nalgene bottle and chugged it. When I finished, I took my phone out of my pocket and paused my tracking app. Babe, we got here 2 hours faster than we did the last time. I called over to Barry as he was unpacking his food options. Oh, hell yes, Barry exclaimed, running over for a high five. I busted out my miniature journal and grabbed my phone. I wanted to jot down the details of the day before I forgot. I had brought a very small and thin moleskin notebook to keep notes in this time versus the big funky journal I had brought last time. On the previous trip, I was trying to do big, long journal entries, and it started to feel more like a burden in the moment, so I stopped. I wish I had kept better notes of that first trip, so for this trip, I switched it up. At the bare minimum, I wanted to take notes on what I experienced, so I answered the same questions every day. If I felt like writing more, awesome. If not, totally fine. But I'd take note of the following things. 1, statistics for the day. Distance, time on trail, blood sugar readings, calories burned. Number 2, what were my biggest wins? Number 3, what lessons did I learn? Number 4, what am I thankful for right now? Number 5, how am I feeling right now? 6, what did I see and hear? 7, did anything stand out? And 8, did I use any specific mantras today? TCT journal entry, June 28th, 2018. 28,741 steps, 11.16 miles on Map My Run, 7 hours on the trail, 4,329 calories burned. We saw 2 bison en route to Blackjack. We arrived almost 2 hours earlier than last time. Holy shit. The last 2 summits before Blackjack Canyon campground were insane still, but I'm in way better condition upon my arrival than I was last time. Bringing my DSLR was a good choice. Tomorrow's my 33rd birthday. Holy poop. Today, I repeated my core desired feelings with my steps. Generous, grounded, joy. So far, so good. Having chicken and dumplings for dinner. Yay, let's eat. Biggest wins, we shaved 2 hours off our time. I feel freaking great. Mostly happy tears today. Lessons learned. My stories are mine to tell. Tell them, stop comparing or worrying. Thankful for. This is something Barry and I can share. We are so lucky. How am I feeling? Grounded. My toes are sore, but not nearly the shit show we had last time. My back is a bit sore. Mentally, I feel incredible. I love being out here. What did I see or hear? At one point, I accessed pure joy and bliss. All the sounds disappeared, and I was warm and free and sobbing. Did I die? What stood out? How much easier this is this time. Mantras, generous, grounded joy, I can do hard things, get it together, Williams, and hot sage. I closed the journal and tucked it back into my backpack. Barry was done boiling water for his dinner, so now it was my turn. Chicken and dumplings, a Blackjack tradition for me at this point. I scarfed down dinner and grabbed my camera to wander around the campground. We were in the campsite next to the one we were in last time, and I grimaced at the memory of what my feet were feeling like that first night on the trail in 2016. At that point, I had a blister on my heel, and my pinky toes had turned into blisters too. Barry was setting up the tarp so we could cowboy camp under the tree. I checked the angle of the portable solar panel I brought and was impressed by how it was charging the power brick to keep our cameras charged. Everything was going exactly how I imagined it would. I felt strong, I had a few really good cries, and moved some energy out of my body, and this sunset was looking pretty magical. The way the light was peeking through the trees up near the bathrooms caught my eye, and I found myself skip sprinting up the hill with my camera to try to get the shot before the light changed. Last time we were here, I couldn't even get up the hill to go to the bathroom. I made it up to the top of the hill and started taking pictures of a dead tree that was perfectly aligned with the Trans-Catalina Trail sign. I paused for a minute and just took a good, slow look around. I wanted to remember every detail of this place, of this whole trip. I thought back to the pure bliss state that I had found on the trail. I found that place after we left the playground, before we started the last climb. I noticed a shift in my mindset. After I cried so hard, I was keeled over. I felt lighter. When I was filling out my water bladder, I felt confident. And on that last climb before Blackjack, I felt inspired. What was happening here? And what will tomorrow bring? And that is chapter 13. We made it. I have Beyonce here. So, as you can see, Kathryn Osborne has been drawing the mantras for each chapter. So tonight she has this beautiful drawing. And what we're going to do after this event is share all of these so you can have them, you can download them, you can print them off, frame them, make them look pretty. And I'm really excited to introduce our first guest, Kathryn Goetzke. She is the founder of IFRED, which is the International Foundation for Research and Education on Depression. So Kathryn, come on down, welcome. It's like The Price is Right. Here we go.
Hee-haw! How are you?
I'm so good. It's so great to see you. How's life?
Oh my gosh, it's so good to see you too. First of all, I love you listening to you read your book. That's so great. It's such a way to really get into the emotion of it. So I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So for people that don't know you, let's do a quick intro. Who are you? What do you do? And where are you currently?
Cool. Right now I'm in Bend, Oregon in a little co-working space. I'm staying with my brother. Actually, I'm testing some curriculum on his family, but I live in Reno, Nevada. And I run a company called the Mood Factory that we focus on sensory engagement for presence. And then I run a nonprofit called iFred, and as you mentioned, and I started at the same time I started the company. And we've created a program to teach hope to young kids. So it's a free program available globally, doing a lot of research on hope. And I also wrote a book called The Biggest Little Book About Hope. And it also shares my story, my lived experience. So named after
I
the city I live in.
I love that. So would you mind sharing a bit of your story and how you got directed into this work? Because everybody that finds themselves in the nonprofit world or starting a cause-based business, I feel has a very interesting story. And I know that yours is interesting. So I'd love to hear a bit about that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. So I got involved. When I was 19, lost my dad to suicide. So that really sparked, I think, my interest in giving back to this community. And growing up, I always wanted to make him happy. And he was probably undiagnosed bipolar or borderline. We're not really sure. But the impact of living with someone with mental health, I experienced a lot of trauma myself as a child, and also attempted in my 20s to suicide. And it shocked me that I attempted as well, because I saw the impact that suicide had on myself and other people, and I thought I'd never want to do that to someone else. But as we know, suicide isn't, I was in a traumatic place when I had attempted. And then I worked for corporations and businesses and started my own company and my own brand. And so I'd done a lot of healing and self-work. And so at that time, I decided to give back to a nonprofit related to mental health and doing work in the space. And you're a marketing person as well. This was about 15 years ago, and I saw the branding around mental health to be really depressing. So really focused, the imagery was horrible. I couldn't relate to it at all. And I knew it wasn't depictive of my dad. And a lot of the focus was on the symptoms, as opposed to the fact that anxiety and depression are very manageable and treatable. And so I spent the first probably 10 years focused on talking to the mental health community about how to rebrand depression, and then was probably about 7 years ago, really focused on if we want to really prevent suicide, and really first and foremost, starting with my own, because I have such a high risk profile, that we have to get to the cause of it. And hopelessness is the only known predictor of suicide, the number one symptom of depression. So I kind of sought out to hack hopelessness and look at what it takes to create, maintain, and grow a hopeful mindset.
That's incredible. Like, thank you. Thank you for your work to rebrand depression. So could you walk me through that? Like, what were the steps that you took? Because you identified that, like, they're talking about the symptoms. They're not talking, like, it looks sad because it is. Like, when you saw how depression was being portrayed, what was your initial spark and where did you take that? Like, walk us through the process of rebranding depression.
Yeah, so I mean, it takes us like a tenth of a second to make an impression on something, and when we see an image of it, and either positive or negative, and then we after that. And I saw the imagery associated with depression to be someone hiding in a corner, alone, isolated, and it felt very hopeless to me. So I thought, I'm not going to want to fund that. I don't want to support something that I can't have impact on. And so I started looking into, and so I know a lot about marketing and branding, and I have an MBA in marketing, international marketing, and got an undergrad in psychology. And helped big companies do branding and rebranding. And so I looked at it, less than 25% of people were getting treatment, and they said, a big part of that was stigma. And stigma is really a lack of understanding, a misunderstanding, misperception, lack of information. And so I went and looked at other disease states and what other disease states had done to rebrand diseases, breast cancer being one of them. And the biology of the body is a big thing. So I really got active about talking about the biology of the brain, what we know, what we don't know, how behavior and biology are interrelated. I looked at universal symbolism. So when you look at big brands, they use the universal symbolism, repeat it over and over and over, how groups can work together, speaking about the success rate of treatment and what we can do to solve the problem, as opposed to focusing so much on symptoms. And then just went around educating and also getting celebrities engaged, getting leaders engaged, sharing their personal story, not of someone they know, but their own personal story of mental health, and how it's impacted them, their own anxiety and depression stories, and the importance of that and leadership to kind of change the conversations around it. So I joined a number of advisory boards. The World Health Organization has a global forum every year that's kind of an invite only. They have experts from all over the world. And so I started attending, taking notes, listening to every expert I could about mental health, and then presented just on marketing and branding.
I love that. So if there's anybody watching that hasn't been diagnosed with depression, but has been looking at the symptoms and sees the list and they're like, yeah, I got like 10 of those. What would you recommend as first steps for getting help? And also, do you advocate for, like, is there a system that you've created or that you're comfortable sharing where people can kind of help themselves if they don't have access to traditional therapy methods?
Yeah, great question. And so when I looked at hacking hopelessness, and hopelessness is really a primary symptom of depression. So hopelessness is made up of two things. It's made up of one, a feeling of despair. So that negative feeling that we have, the feeling of despair. And then the second thing is a sense of helplessness. So an inability to act. So if we want to address hopelessness or depression, we have to address both the feelings and the inability to act. And do that separately. I think that, to me, that's why hiking is such a positive way to deal with depression, because we need future orientation. We need to move forward as humans. And so that feeling of stuckness and that feeling of horribleness is a horrible place to be as a human. And so to me, I mean, therapy and medication are two known kind of together treatments for a major depressive episode. And yet for me, I've been sober for 15 years. I don't drink. I exercise every day. I'm really focused on my nutrition. I eat really well. I've been off meds 5 years and, rarely need therapy these days. And so to me, it's really where you're at in the spectrum. There are a lot of support networks. There are a lot of suicide hotlines if you're suicidal, text crisis lines. There's an app called 7 Cups that has peer-to-peer support. But if you want to address depression, anxiety, you really have to look at both those feelings. So that feeling of despair and that sense of helplessness. So, I mean, our program teaches hope, as a skill, which is kind of the opposite. It's that positive, getting to that positive feeling state, and it's getting to take action. We kind of address how to do both of those things. And, it's really, as you've kind of shared earlier, feelings are so important no matter what we're feeling to experience them. Like I ran through addictions. Ran through eating disorders. I ran from all of those negative feelings because I didn't want to experience them. And yet anger and sadness and pain and all of that is really important for informing us, like how we're feeling and how we need to act. But when we act in that negative state, it leads to kind of uninspired action. And so it's about transforming those feelings, listening to them, releasing them, getting to a more positive space, and only then kind of taking action. So that's kind of like in a nutshell how we teach it to kids and how we practice it in my life. My first job every day is getting myself to a positive feeling state. And so addressing feelings as they come up, processing them kind of real time, and then moving and taking action when I'm in a more positive place.
What are some of the things that you do in the morning to get yourself to a positive state? I love that that's your first order of business. And I feel like everybody, if they don't currently employ that in their morning routine, definitely should. So what are some of the ways that you cultivate that positive mindset?
Yeah, awesome. So gratitude, prayer, anxious or distressed about something, I try to listen to what that's about and see if there's anything I can actually do about that. And I exercise first thing in the morning. I hike daily 6 or 7 miles. That positive momentum, like having that goal for a very specific goal for hiking is like a great way for me to get into that kind of positive momentum state. Part of the hope state, the positive feelings, like getting to the positive feeling state and then taking inspired action, like part of that is setting what we call SMART goals. So specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. A lot of times we feel hopeless because we set these goals that are impossible, or they're too big, and so we get into that very anxious like state of, but every morning I have a goal to do this, to do this kind of a hike, and like just meeting that one goal every day gives me that sense of kind of accomplishment and positive momentum forward. So I think, to me, hiking is such a great analogy for how you get that kind of hopeful mindset.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Because like any big goal, like the way that I attack life now, and I don't even like saying attacking life. That's intentional language. The way that I approach life is like I have all these big goals and they're the summit, right? So like to get to the top is the accomplishment for me. So I've taken lessons that I've learned on the trail, and like I look at goals as mountains now. So it's like if I can get a step closer to that summit every day, then life is great. Um, how long have you been hiking, and what kind of an impact has that made in your personal work, in the work that you do for others? Like, let's talk about your connection to nature a little bit, because we were in Reno last year. You guys have some beautiful hiking out there.
I know, it's gorgeous. Yeah, getting in nature is key to a hopeful mindset and key to connection. And like you mentioned earlier, grounding. It's so important. So hiking is always, yeah, it's just like you say, a great way to center and ground. And no matter what my mood state is, it kind of anchors me, allows me to get to what's really bothering me. So it creates that kind of repetitive motion that allows me to really like let go of control of the mind and get more into the feeling state of the heart and figure out what's kind of really going on and what's at the root, and then release that, and move through it. It's been very healing for me over just over isolation too, like getting out daily and getting into nature and getting that experience and releasing those emotions as that like pain comes up. Cry, like you said, like get down on your knees, cry, like experience all of it. It's not something we have to run from. And it allows me to process emotions much more easily than I've ever been able to. Things come up and they move through me now, as opposed to kind of getting stuck into that trauma kind of bonded body. Yeah, and it's interesting. One of the things around hope too is like we set these goals, right? And if we can figure out how to navigate around challenges or obstacles then that come up, it can lead to a very hopeless state. And if we can't figure out how to set new goals or different goals, when we can't reach those goals, our ability to pivot to a new goal also predicts how hopeful we will stay. And then the other thing is presence. So it's experiencing life as it comes and not waiting to achieve that thing before we feel happy, but feeling happy, present, engaged on the journey, which is like the opposite of what we're taught in school. And we're taught that success is about reaching something, but it's actually not. It's about how we treat ourselves and other people along the way to wherever we're going.
I love that part too. I've been trying to like really internalize that as much as possible, that there's like the things that I've been telling myself lately is like, you don't have to check all the boxes to be happy. So like you could need healing in one area of your life and everything else is amazing. Like celebrate what's amazing and use that to fuel you to heal the other parts that need help. So would you have any advice for anybody that's listening that's like stuck, that is just like, I can't get out, I'm in this cycle, I'm in this spiral, like I can't break this negative train of thought?
Yeah, and it was, I mean, the reminder of it. I mean, and that's what I do with my company. I started it because I was like, as trauma survivors, we tend to be in our mind or out of our body. So we leave our bodies, right? We can't be in the present moment. It's very hard to experience the presence. And so I was like, I want to know not just like how to be present, but how to really feel awesome in the present moment. And when you were describing earlier the air on your stomach, I mean, it's like engaging your senses is one of the most powerful ways to get present. And just learning how to like love and feel like all different aspects of us that we've like abandoned so long ago is such a key way to heal. If we're using our senses to engage, we're not in our minds. It's like it's impossible to be in that thought, in that rumination, or in that anxious state of forward future forecasting if we're really that all of the smells too. It's funny because you brought up the scent of sage and how that triggered a memory. So scent is one of our most powerful modalities, both positive and negative. So it's directly connected to our memory. So we don't process that sensory experience, and it goes right to memory. So, and that can be either good or bad, but we can actually train ourselves to positive mood states using the sense of smell as like an anchoring. So feeling really good, getting those endorphins, and then anchoring it with a scent to really anchor that feeling. And the more senses we engage to achieve whatever state we want, the more powerful it is. And so, and that was really the inspiration behind the company as well. It was like, how can we feel great? And the senses are a great way to do that.
That was actually going to be my next question, because mood light is like lighting and aromatherapy. Is that right? Do you want to explain a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, so I started the company about 15 years ago based on, again, wanting to figure out what impacts how we feel and colors. We look at colors and the association is often with things in nature. So like the color light blue reminds us of the sky, and so we feel calm, or of the ocean, and so we feel a certain way. Yellow is associated with the sun. So I developed mood lights based on colors and moods, and just like kind of adding little artistic touches to like our spaces. The research on colored lighting isn't as clear as that though, and my goal is to really create multisensory experiences targeting mood states. And so I actually got out of lighting for that reason, because it's like blue light keeps us awake, but it's really how bright the blue on your phone is. Where looking at the color blue is very common, or it's very calming. And so I got out of the lighting, but I have a new scent line based on how smells affect your moods. And I want to eventually do multi-sensory experiences, so like teas and mood chocolates and mood bars and taste, but all about engaging the senses. Because the research around scent is is pretty compelling and powerful, and has a physiological response on our bodies. And so like citrus is a very happy and a very uplifting scent. As you're probably aware, lavender is very calming and can help with sleep. And that's really like, if you're having trouble sleeping, look at all of five senses, and what kind of environment you're creating for your sleeping state, like how you feel, the temperature of the room, the comfort of of your sheets or whatever you're in, the smell, the light, I mean, all of that. And so that was, And then I wanted to do cause marketing for mental health. And cause marketing is another way to reduce stigma and educate on the importance. I mean, they've raised a lot of money for heart disease and breast cancer and all of that using cause marketing, and it works to end stigma and educate people about it.
So what is your dream campaign look like for rebranding mental health, doing cause marketing around that? Like, have you already done stuff that you would just like love to do for the rest of your life? Or do you have like a dream in your mind of what that looks like? Because we know breast cancer is pink everything in October. Like, what would mental health rebranded look like to you?
So to me, what started out as a quest to end suicide has become, and to really understand what causes suicide and really prevent, first and foremost, my own suicide, has become a quest to really promote hope and to focus on hope as a skill. So from a mental health standpoint, my goal is to focus on hope, and hope is predictive of, I mean, well, hopelessness is a consequence of discrimination or oppression. So if you're oppressed, you begin to become hopeless, which is a normal response. And when you feel hopeless, it can lead to addiction, violence, sexually, risky behaviors in youth, all kinds of things. And hope, on the other hand, is teachable. We're not taught the skills for hope. And it's very clear that you can increase levels of hope. So to me, the campaign is really around hope itself. It's teaching, I mean, hope predicts how well you'll do in sports, your level of hope, more so than your athletic ability. It'll predict your academic, your grades more than your IQ. It predicts how long you'll live, how quickly you recover from disease states. So there are all kinds of benefits to hope, including hope is predictive of your future levels of anxiety and depression. And yet your anxiety and depression don't predict your future levels of hope, which to me, as someone with lived experience, is so important, because it doesn't matter that I'm depressed now. It doesn't mean that I'll be hopeless forever. It means that I can increase my skills for hope. And then that serves as a protective factor for anxiety and depression. So just because I've been depressed doesn't mean I'm always going to be depressed, or, so it's very kind of a proactive way, I think, to address mental health. And it's vision is to do a massive campaign around hope and get celebrities talking about the science of hope and the importance of it, and that it's like a skill, like basketball. You practice your hope skills like you do dribbling, and you get really good, and it impacts everything you do in life. And so it's kind of addressing, I think, mental health in a different way. I mean, my vision for the company is to have different mood states and have them support different causes, mindfulness and hope and sleep. Sleep is so important, and then play. So we have an energy line, and I think play is so important. It's like we get so serious in life, and so to do cause marketing around a lot of different things, yeah. So for my company, so I've put my company to the side, and I'm so focused on hope because the research around hope is so compelling, and it's so clear to me, and it's something we can easily measure. And we just published our first paper on hope about our program. A lot of people have done research around hope, but they haven't operationalized it. So they haven't started figuring out how to improve it and how to teach it. And so I was like, well, then we have to do that. And we've been testing it with kids, and it's been working. And as their hope increases, their depression and anxiety decrease, which, wasn't even really an intention of the program. It wasn't really a treatment. It was more a prevention and skills-based approach. But I mean, the evidence is compelling, and like we're learning how to improve it and how to teach it in better ways. And the kids are like, we want this everywhere. And so I feel like I have to right now. So that's been my focus.
I love that. If there's anybody in the Zoom chat that has a question for Kathryn, go ahead and pop on your video, and we'll call on you. And I have a couple more questions for Kathryn while everybody gets queued up. But I love that. So is there like a baseline of hope that most people have, that like, what are the symptoms of hope, I guess, is like, how do you know that you're feeling hopeful, and what are ways that you can increase your hopefulness?
Yeah, so it's feeling good, like it's in a positive feeling state, and it's like a lot of it's problem solving, goal setting. It's our ability to like overcome challenges and find ways to do things and new solutions. Presence. I mean, there are hope measures. So we have hope scales, and we're actually going to publish them soon, like so that people can take their like measure where they're at on hope. But yeah, it's about it's a lot of it's like goals, problem solving, navigating challenges, coming up with new goals, and feeling positive on the way. So that's primarily there's another researcher, Dr. Scioli, that does a lot on faith, and that he, believes faith is really key to hope. And to me, that it's important for me, and there's a lot of research that also supports that. And I know there are some places where repression or religion has served to oppress, and so many people are kind of against that. And to me, hope is like an equal opportunity. Like everyone has access to hope, and we have to find different ways to meet those needs. I think faith is really about connection and a sense of wonder and awe. So I think there are different ways to kind of look at it that way. We know hopelessness is predictive of suicide and also predictive of loneliness, and so connection is really important. And when we teach children, like we make sure that children identify a hope network, so they have identified at least one safe, trusted person that they can go to and talk to in challenging times, or really at all times. But that's a key indicator of I guess hopefulness, and yeah, as being connected or having connections to others.
I love that. Michelle, do you have a question for Kathryn? Go ahead.
Hi, Kathryn. My issue was that when I was 15, 16 years old, I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety. And that was around the time that Paxil was coming out, Zoloft, Zyprexa, all of these antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication. And it was at that time where they were just like, here, this will help you, this will help you. And I literally felt like, you know how a witch's brew, that you're just tossing things in there and then it just, like that's how I felt. And since I suffer a lot from anxiety, of course, those pills make me go into zombie mode, and not being able to control my body would amplify my anxiety, and I just got really sick. So after that, I just got off the medication on my own, and I was pretty much left to fend for myself on how to deal with my depression and my anxiety. Now, I became a woman of faith about a year ago, and I realized that that's helped me a lot to deal with these things. But I was wondering, is there any, because I know you were talking about senses of smell and lavender and all that, is there any supplements, natural supplements that may you recommend or that you have taken that you've noticed that have helped you or others? Because as far as medication goes, I'm not touching that anymore. It's ridiculous. Anything else you suggest or recommend, or your personal experience on natural supplements?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I mean, there is so much we don't know about medications and how they affect us, and they affect everyone differently. And so medications are really hard. My dad was newly on medications when I lost him. They saved my life. So I'm not for or against them. To me, it's about what you can do to get yourself to a positive state, and helping get. So to me, medication and therapy together are an important thing that we miss as society. We medicate, but we don't deal with what's causing it. And getting to the root of the issues. And so unless you're doing those two together, I mean, you're just kind of prolonging, I think, the problem. And that's had happened in my life. In terms of, so, you know, but I completely understand that you don't want to take them and they didn't work well and it was just confusing and you know, made things worse. I definitely, I mean, medications I became more suicidal when I went on them until I got stabilized. So it's, you know, you've got to do what's good for you. I know in terms of supplements, I mean, vitamin D is they know a lot. Vitamin D and omega-3 are the two things that they found, I mean, related to mental health and depression and anxiety. So making sure your vitamin D levels are good. A lot of people are low in them. And then also omega-3s. Are the two main things I would say, making protein, I mean, vegetables and like nutrition. And then again, exercise if you can. I have, meditation has also been life-saving for me for my anxiety. So there's an app called Timer, Insight Timer, that's free that you can do guided meditations with them if you don't like sitting still at all and have a hard time with that, which is often true in anxiety. I did meditation in group to help start to manage my anxiety because I felt the energy around other people was more helpful for me. So I did that in like a Buddhist meditation centers. You know, I've like tried everything. And then also breathing is, you know, I know Sydney mentioned this, but I cannot, one of the really interesting, I'm in business and I've been working with a company that looks at HRV. And as I started digging into it's heart rate variability. So it's like you have a heartbeat and then you have variability between heartbeats. And the more variable your heartbeat is, the more positive that is for you. And low HRV is associated with all kinds of things, including depression and anxiety, heart disease, cancer, I mean, all kinds of physical, you know, health issues. And heart rate variability is improved through breathing, through really slow, deep breathing, which is something like we're not taught to do. And even during an anxiety, so it's 90 seconds. So when we're triggered, and this is especially true of people that have any kind of trauma or anxiety, we're triggered, our body goes into a physiological response, and it takes at least 90 seconds for that to be calmed down and regulated. And we do that through deep breathing. And a lot of times we're not even aware that it's happening. But if you can start to become aware of that and start to really work to regulate your breathing, it can really help, not just like in your mindset, but physiologically to increase your heart rate variability, which also can have all kinds of positive physical, you know, benefits for you. So that's, I mean, there's a lot of other vitamins and supplements people suggest, but those are the two things. The other thing that's worked for me, miracles, is 5-HTP. You know, a different, some people, SAMe is helpful for them, melatonin for sleeping, but like that does nothing for me. So I think it's too, yeah, you know, it's dependent on the people and person. But I would say that, you know, we over medicate as society and we don't get to the root cause. And for me, medication helps me experience the pain and trauma that I did not think I could handle. And to get to a place now where, I mean, I feel like emotions can be too intense for me and like I can't handle, and yet I've learned that I can handle it. And the more I stop pushing it away and the more I just like let myself experience it, the quicker I move through it. And the more I'm like, oh yeah, I can, like, no pain is going to be too great for me to handle. So I don't know, I hope that's helpful. I know it's a it's a challenging journey, and yet it can also lead to your greatest brilliance and gifts. And it's, to me, it's just learning how to channel the like intensity of your feelings to like really creative, like find a really creative outlet for you that allows you to shine and to use, to me, like they're gifts. And it's just a matter of like figuring out how to use them.
Yes, right now what's going on with me is that whenever something happens, I put it in a box, lock it up, and throw away the key. So now that I've gotten involved with the church and I've gone through a program called Regeneration, now I'm getting to the root of the problem. And now I'm starting to feel all those things that I have stored years and years ago. So I've noticed that all of these things are, my depression's coming back, my anxiety's coming back, I'm feeling everything. And I mean, I think I'm doing okay. I'm working out, I'm reading, getting involved with in these virtual camps. I signed up for Sydney's self-care class also. So I feel like I'm going in the right direction, but I just feel like I need a little bit of input, like you're like telling me like you're gonna be okay, or try this or something, you know, because like you said, it's important to feel those feelings. And I understand that, but sometimes it's like, oh, it's all like too much.
I know. Yeah, no, I know. And I mean, to me, the fact that you can feel the feelings is a really positive thing. And then having support in place so that you know hotlines, or you have at least one person you can go to when you feel that horribleness, or, you know, the text crisis lines. There's an app called 7 Cups that's peer-to-peer support that can be really helpful too. So you can connect with other people that have gone through, your specific, what you're going through. They have all kinds of different like peer-to-peer support specialists. And yeah, you can, I mean, the fact that you can feel is so, and if you can learn to like enjoy your feelings and the fact that you can feel so deeply, and then learn positive ways to kind of cope with them. Like if things are getting too much, your anxiety, if you can learn for you what helps, if it's writing them down, and just really kind of being curious about even where does it come from and what is it trying to tell you, and be more loving of them and curious about them. We're taught, like you said, to put it in a box, and like that doesn't work. Right? They're there for a reason. And so it's learning how to love them and putting the support structures in place so that you can kind of get through them.
Thank you.
Of course. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kathryn, for joining us. But for everybody that's still watching, where can people find you, and what are you most excited about that you're working on right now?
Okay, well, I'm most excited. We just launched our new curriculum for young kids, hopefulminds.org, and it's free. And I have found that the best way to like really integrate the work on hope is by teaching it to kids. Like, because you really get to experience it and you get to learn from them. And kids are so much more insightful in a lot of ways. They haven't been trained by society. So yeah, this new curriculum, it's 3 one-hour lessons, and it's a free booklet, and you can go on to hopefulminds.org and download it and read a lot of the research and what hope is, and yeah, how to create, maintain, and grow kind of a hopeful mindset. And so I'm really passionate about getting it out to kids.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. And for everybody that is on the Zoom chat, thank you for your questions and for your comments. Kathryn, have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. You too. Have fun.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Up next, I've got Mr. Kyle Smith. He writes anthems for Addicts, and he plays songs that I like. So Kyle, welcome. Come on down. It's like The Price is Right.
Yeah. Yep. Tell me when you're ready.
What's up, Cindy?
All right. Look at you.
Yeah, how are you?
I'm great. How are you? I love your setup, man. That's awesome.
Thank you. I had a lot of help from some really good friends. So how are you guys doing? Having fun?
Yeah, we're doing great. We just got done talking about hope, which I feel like is a perfect segue into you and your story.
Oh my goodness. I don't know anything about any of that stuff.
No, hope is a hell of a drug. So for everybody that doesn't know you, tell me a little bit about you and how you got into music, because you say reggae music saved your life. What did it save you from?
Yeah,
That's what
should have saved me from me, I guess would be the best way to put it. It's good to hear your voice. Actually, I got you coming through the monitor out here in this yard, so it's so I can't see you, but I can hear you. So I'm just gonna pretend like we're having a normal conversation right now. But yeah, I'm super happy to be here. Thank you for having me. And as far as hope, I mean,
Can't we see him?
I mean, I'm glad I found a place of belonging in our music scene, you know. And I know there's a bunch of different subgenres, and there's all kinds of, you know, I mean, it don't matter what genre or what scene you're a part of, man. It's you know, anything that makes you feel whole and makes you forget about your problems is key, especially right now with everything going on. So, you know, I spent a lot of my teenage years as a kid on the streets of Long Beach, you know, just getting into some really heavy drugs and heroin and meth, and spent like a few years like sleeping in bathrooms.
And Kyle, just a second. There's some back talk, so I don't know if you've got folks that are in there with you, but I can hear like everybody in the background.
Oh, really? Do they have them?
Yeah, it's good. It's good now.
He says he's sorry and he'll shut up.
Okay, good. So back to the drugs. Yeah, you sound great.
Back to the drugs. But yes, long story short, I'm a recovering addict, and I feel like I should be looking at this one. I'm a recovering addict. I've been clean since July 14th, 2013. And you know, obviously I do my whole recovery thing with all my meetings and everything, but I feel like, you know, the whole music side of all this has really been keeping me sane and giving me something to be passionate about and a reason to live, basically, you know.
I love that. So do you have a song to kick us off, and then we'll chat some more?
Yeah, I'll play a jam called Jaded. This is a song I wrote about Long Beach, California, kind of like more about, I guess, kind of about like corrupted youth and what, you know, what a lot of young kids are going through now. And I hope we're doing okay with the audio as far as the wind and everything. Do a quick little check before I get too into it. Are we good? You tell me. You good?
Pretty good.
Yeah, cool. I say, yeah, you on side of town. Lit the pavement, I ain't looking back to the town. The pavement, I ain't looking but yeah. All right. I'm on over to the dark side, where we feeling every day. Where you all about this paradise, but I don't feel no pain. Don't bring the chaos, exit every life. Can't see no way out, and nobody wanna save us. How do I survive? Oh. How do I survive? Jaded, all in the blind. When the symbols are guiding the way, start leading the kind. And when the God is all arriving, no matter the peace. When the God is all arriving, no matter the peace. Just do not see no other already all away. It's where something never change. But not shit today. Not break that shit today. Jaded, all in the blind. Symbols are guiding the way. Start leading the kind. It's all arriving. Nobody's peace. Jaded, all in the blind. Symbols are guiding the way. The cool is all in the kind. It's all arriving. Nobody's peace. It's all arriving. Nobody's peace. It's all arriving. Nobody's peace. It's all arriving. Nobody's
Nothing like throwing it together. Here we go.
Yeah, tried to make it sound decent for you guys. I hope it's sounding good coming out on your end. Not too sure what we got going through here, but did the best we could.
It's a little. Mic is good. Guitar's a little hot and muffled, so I don't know if that's easy. Yeah,
it's a little hot, huh?
It sounds distorted a
Does
little
it?
bit.
Okay. Let's see. Barely on too. I can turn it down. Was that a little better?
That sounds a little better.
How's that? Do you believe I would taste the thing we made? Give it to a policeman. I wouldn't do that. Is that a little better?
That's a little better.
A little. Okay. Let's do a lot better. Anyways, we'll talk while we try to get everything dialed.
Yeah. So you have been clean since remind me the year. I heard July 14th, but
2013.
Dang. So how's it been? Like when did that happen? And then how soon after that did music happen?
Okay, so I guess I went through a treatment center in Riverside, California, when I was 20. And so yeah, sober and clean, and sometimes it sucks, sometimes it's rewarding, you know. When I was younger and when I was new, it really sucked because withdrawals and all that stuff, and just having a hard time just being, and eating and doing the basic human functions. But the longer I stuck with it, the more I could actually have conversations with people and look at them in the eyes, the more that I tried to live better and practice some principles and all the stuff that I learned through the meetings and all the stuff that I do. And it's basically just shit that we're taught as adults that I don't think that I don't want to point any fingers, but I don't think that I was taught as a kid, you know what I mean? So a lot of misinformed people guiding misinformed people is what I'm used to.
Yeah, well, I feel like most of the world's probably that way, right? Like we're all just trying to figure it out as we go, and it depends
no
on
shit. Everybody's doing the best they can with what they got. That's for sure. I know that.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about your music career, because you have been, I don't want to blow smoke up your ass, but you're kind of blowing up a little bit, dude. Like what's the deal?
I mean, I guess things have picked up a little bit since the Star Lounge a year and a half ago, huh?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, you're playing Cali Roots and stuff. No big deal.
Yeah.
It's fine.
You know what? I've just been really, really blessed and lucky and I don't know. I mean, I just try to take advantage of every opportunity that comes my way, and I try to put myself in a position to receive it because, show up everywhere, say yes to everything and be in everybody's face 24/7. And the most important thing to me is not caring how it looks to anybody else and going for it, because I don't know. I mean, I can only speak for myself, but I can either listen to people that doubt me and pay attention to the one person that doesn't like my shit, or I can, give a bunch of love to the 200 people that do, per one that hates it. So, so it's always going to be somebody, man. And one of the most important things that I've learned over the past couple years is go for it, no matter what people think.
I love that. And you have a full-time job and you do music. What would you say the split of your time is right now?
I mean, I'm up at 4:30 in the morning every day for work, and then I'm grinding till about 4 p.m. and then I handle music stuff till about 11 p.m. and the only time I'm really sleeping is between midnight and 4. So, and that's during quarantine. so you can imagine while we're actually playing shows, it's most of the time I'll be playing at a venue till 1 in the morning or 2 in the morning, and then get 3 hours of sleep and then back at it, trying to not act like I'm tore up,
So tell me a little bit, because you've been hiking a lot. When
Yes.
have you been hiking? Is this a new thing for you? What is your connection to nature and how does it inspire you?
I love this. Thank you for bringing it up. So I think maybe maybe about 3 years ago, probably, maybe when I had 3 years clean. So 3-4 years ago, I started loving just being out in the woods and I really started taking a liking to just escaping the numbers and the buildings and finances and bills and all the shit and stuff that we I'm the type of dude that'll bite off more than I can chew and chew like hell. So that escape is mandatory now, and I've been really, really lucky with the second shot of life, and I just want to see and do everything before I die because I want to make the most of it, man. I feel like I've been able to live twice, and I'm 27. You know what I mean? Yeah, I've been really focusing on over the past 3 years, just seeing and doing everything, and have pretty much knocked out like anywhere you can drive to so far.
That's awesome. What's been your favorite hike so far?
My favorite one so far, damn, if I had to pick one, I would say Angel's Landing at Zion Park.
Right?
Yeah.
Isn't the view up there stupid?
Yeah. I mean, I really like the risky stuff, you know what I mean? So when you got like 2,000-foot cliffs on like each side of you, and it's just like a little sliver of land, like a little sliver of rock like this tall or this wide, it's, I don't know. I mean, I love it. I love the thrill seeking, and I love the adrenaline part of it too. And you know, there's always an element of like what could go wrong that keeps it like, I don't want to, it's kind of messed up, but it's like, you know, there's always that like kind of fear, I guess, you know, like riding a roller coaster, same thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. We did actually Zion was our first hike, like our first major hike in a national park last year on our tour. And we did Angel's Landing. We woke up at 3:30 in the morning because we wanted to be up there for sunrise. And it was April. And we got up there, we got past the first set of chains at Scout Landing, and my fingers were like numb in my gloves. I couldn't hold onto the chains. I got like right down before you go to that last set of chains before you start going up that last little mountain.
Yeah.
And I was just like, my whole body was like, nope, not happening, not doing it. You can't even touch chains right now. Like you're gonna die. You're gonna fall off this cliff. It's over. But that view is so stupid up there.
Yeah.
Like it is just nuts.
Yeah,
you can see for miles.
It's unbelievable.
Well, let's jam a song. What else you got?
Cool. I'll play a song called Dope Fiend, and I actually wrote this one. Pretty self-explanatory. You know how we're doing on the guitar.
Sounds better on this.
Sounds a little better. If you're happy, I'm happy. Well, I'm a dope fiend on top of this. Never seen a drop a lot for this kid. Never open up my eyes enough with my head down on my knees until I needed another day. Said I'll wake up another day. I'm sick and stoned, I can feel this way. We just don't feel as good as it used to. Said I'm doing what I gotta just to feel okay. Do it all again, I guess I'm insane. I've been that empty feeling now that I'm used to. You know me, it's top of this. Never seen a drop a lot for this kid. Never open up my eyes enough with my head down on my knees until I needed another kid. I'm a dope fiend, it's top of this. Never seen a drop a lot for this kid. Never open up my eyes enough with my head down on my knees until I needed another kid. Give me one more, I need one more taste. Wanna get high and leave this place. I got my girl in my ear, but I got no job. My family ain't got to steal and rob, but I love it too. All this money, that shit, that makes me feel. Up in the morning and party too. All over the south, throwing up in the sun. I love my life, put it in my soul. Don't like me, and got no friends. I'm time and my money right down the drain. They call me dope fiend, they don't know my name. Dope fiend, get top of this. Never seen the top of life for this kid. Never opened up my eyes enough with my head down on my knees until I needed another kid. That's the way it is. Yeah. That's the way it is. Yeah. That's the way it is.
Woo! The whole Zoom chat's clapping. Everybody's stoked. Audio sounds way better. We're crushing it.
Thank you guys so much.
So tell me a little bit about like if there's somebody listening or somebody watching that knows that they are just like stuck in the throes of addiction, but they're also kind of tired of their own shit. What would your advice be for like first steps on where to get help and how to get out of it?
That's a damn good question. I mean, it's there's so many different things that I could tell you, and there's a million different ways I could put it. But like, you know, at the end of the day, when you're done, you know. And I mean, I was basically, not to make it about me, but you know, what it took for me was to be surrounded by cops in a parking lot and basically given like an ultimatum, you know, either go to treatment or go to jail. You know, is basically what it came down to, and so I chose to, you know, give recovery a shot. And you know, everybody's got their own bottom, and it's really just wherever you choose to stop digging. You know what I mean? And you know, there's some people where, you know, not making a car payment is their bottom, and then there's other people where, you know, shooting gutter water is their bottom, you know. And what I realized is it's all about how you feel, you know, because I used to compare circumstances and think that I was a better drug addict, or that, you know, like other people didn't have it as bad, or stupid shit like that. And what it boils down to is just how you feel emotionally, and whether or not you're desperate and broken enough to be willing to make a change. Because if I can only speak for myself, if I'm in enough pain, I'll be willing to do anything to change and make it better. So if you're watching and you're struggling, or if, you know, even if it's a low key thing and nobody knows and you're trying to keep it, you know, keep it low. I mean, the most important thing is to just be real with yourself and just, you know, admitting, like I hate to sound like a textbook guy, but, you know, that's the first step, man, is admitting that there's a problem. And until then, there's just, you know, and look, if you can't be real with you, I mean, I don't want to say how, you know, I don't want to put it on anybody, but if you can't be real with yourself, like, there's no getting better, you know, at the end of the day. And that's just my opinion. I can only speak for me, but until I got real with myself, there was no improvement, you know?
I like that. And I think along those same lines, I saw this on like a sandwich sign outside of a restaurant, so you know it's legit. But it said, if you can't believe in yourself, who else will? And I think that could also serve addicts well. It's like, if you believe you can get better, then I'm sure you can. But yeah, I mean, like, my rock bottom was a panic attack in front of all my colleagues. So it's really not like, if we're on the scale of what's bad and what's not, then it's really not that bad. But I think there's a good message in that, like, trauma is not a competition, and neither is addiction. I felt the same way, right? Like, if you're over it, you're kind of over it. Yep. We've got a question from the group here, and they want to know what is behind the "Who the fuck is Kyle Smith?"
So it's actually a really, really good story. So when I first started, like, going after the music thing, somebody made a group page that I think you're in, and it's Kyle Smith Music Fans. And basically, right when the admin made this group, he asked me, he was like, dude, can I make you a fan group on Facebook? I'm like, sure, why not? And the second he made it, he just started adding, like, everybody and their mother. And some lady posted in the group, who the fuck is Kyle Smith and why am I in this group? And she was, like, super pissed. She was, like, so mad. And everybody just lit her up, and, like, and they were like, that's genius, that's amazing, that should be your slogan. So yeah, it ended up just sticking, and now everybody says that. So she actually did, like, the exact opposite of probably what she was trying to do.
You're like, and thank you for the hot branding tip. Appreciate you.
Totally. I wish I could find her and just be like, do you have any idea what this has become? Like,
it's the whole thing. A lot of people want to know, who the fuck am I?
Right.
So do you have another song you'd like to share before we let you go?
Yeah. I'll play one called No Time for you guys. Was it a little better this go around on the audio, just before I get into it?
Yeah.
I was a little hesitant. You there?
Yeah, that sounds, no, I keep myself muted because it's windy as shit out here. But yeah, this sounds
a little better. Okay. Cool. So this song is called No Time, and I think this kind of ties into what we've been talking about this whole time. It's just about living life urgently and not spending your time with any shitty people. And it goes like this. You know I love it when they come and go. No more playing 20 questions though. Your lips are moving, I don't hear a word. My mouth is dry, you know my vision's blurred. I just can't recall. never be in this damn eyes. Calling it my downfall. I said I'ma just enjoy this ride. Said I'ma just enjoy this ride. Cause when my brutal love isn't there, there ain't no feeling that I can't compare. The love when I wake up and I don't see you out there. My poor decisions got the best of me. I said you might look good, but I got no time for your bullshit. Yeah. I said you might look good, but I got no time for your bullshit. Well, it's for my now that I never asked her to stay. I might have got a buzz when I see you looking at me that way. Well, I'll see you back in my common senses. Yeah. When you give me that, I said I'm suddenly reckless. Yeah. Cause when my road to love is a bed, there ain't no feeling that I can't compare. The love when I wake up and I don't see you out there. My poor decisions got the best of me again. I said you might look good, but I got no time for your bullshit. Yeah. I said you might look good, but I got no time for your bullshit. Hey, 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 hey. Cause when my road to love is a bed, there ain't no feeling that I can compare. But when I wake up and I don't see you out there, my poor decisions got the best of me. Said you might look good, but I got no time for your bullshit. That's the
Is
short
that
version.
new? I love that.
That's the short version. A little bit. It's still working on it in the studio. So yeah, unreleased, I guess, is a good way to put it.
I am a fan. I
Thank
am
you.
into it. That's a mood, man.
I'm glad you like it. Thank you.
So, yeah, absolutely. So where can people find you? And also, before you tell us that, when we come up to Ojai in the next couple of weeks in Ventura, will you come hike with us?
Oh yeah, are you kidding me?
Okay,
Sure,
cool.
yeah.
And also, where can people find you?
Well, you can type in my name. It's Kyle Smith, and you can find me on Spotify, Pandora, YouTube, pretty much anywhere where you can find music. You can find my stuff, and I have a self-titled EP that's 5 songs, and then I have 3 singles that I've dropped over the past year or so. Full-length album coming soon. Been working on it for 2 years straight now, and I think it just blows all my other shit out of the water. So I hope you guys are, excited for it. I know you've been keeping up for a long time, so I'm really excited for you to hear
Yeah.
the good stuff.
Yeah. So do you have a target timeline on when that's coming out?
And you know what? COVID has just beyond obliterated all plans, so I can't even. It's very fluid.
Right.
Yeah, it was supposed to be
Awesome.
like. Put it this way. It was
Perfect.
supposed,
And
it was
your
supposed
Kyle
to be
Smith
February.
jams on. Oh shoot.
Yeah, on Instagram. Yes. Yeah.
You know-
Kyle Smith Jams. You got it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for joining us, Kyle.
You're
It was a
amazing.
pleasure listening to your story and your music, and we love you. And we're looking forward to when we can hear you play live again. But for now, this will do. Thank you so much
Yes.
for being here.
It'll be amazing when it comes back. It'll be glorious. I can't wait to see you there.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks so much, Kyle. We'll
All right,
see you.
much love. I'll see you soon.
All right, party on, team. So now, Melissa Geissinger, come on down. It's not nearly as windy where you are. I look like I'm a weather reporter, live reporting from the tornado zone.
It is getting worse. It is getting worse. I'm representing today.
I love that, and that color on you is like my favorite. So where we met in Santa Rosa, and you have the most beautiful child and the most beautiful spirit, and I would just love for you to tell your story like we're sitting around a campfire. Like, what happened? Like, where were you when everything was going down? Tell us about Apollo. Like, just whatever you feel like sharing, we are here for it.
Yeah. So I got pregnant with my son in 2017. And in August, I learned when I was 20 weeks pregnant, I learned that he had a severe heart defect. And at first, we didn't know exactly what was wrong. And the period of time where you know that something is wrong, but you don't know the specifics of the situation are very scary. And in situations like those, you try not to Google things because you'll give yourself a heart attack. But over time, we got to know more about the situation. In fact, he had a chromosomal microdeletion, which was likely causing these issues with his heart. And then we got hooked up with a cardiologist, and she was able to diagnose the problem. And we knew exactly what he had, and we knew exactly what needed to be done. And there was a game plan moving forward for the surgery that he would need to have days after he was born and all this kind of stuff. He was due in January. So when I was 7 months pregnant in October of 2017, the Tubbs fire happened here in Santa Rosa, California, and wiped out my entire neighborhood along with my house. And everything I owned, everything around here was decimated. It looked like a bomb went off. You know, you see, pictures or videos of a house fire where there's walls left standing and like the carcasses of furniture and that kind of stuff. None of that. We had nothing. When we were able to get to our property finally to kind of sift through what was left, really didn't find much apart from a couple items, including like a vase. My grandmother's vase was basically sitting in this rubble, completely untouched and intact. I don't know how, I can't explain it. So lost everything, had to basically live with my parents who live nearby. And then in December, we induced labor and had my son at UCSF, and everything was going according to plan until after his first surgery. He had a complication. I won't go into the details of everything, but he had 4 major surgeries by the time he was 8 months old, and we almost lost him 3 times. Going through the medical trauma combined with the fire, it was bad. I am the kind of person that I am this eternal optimist, and I was struggling. I was struggling to find the reason. I was struggling to try and plan ahead and figure out what to do. We didn't know for the longest time if we were going to rebuild, if we were going to, just take the money and buy a new house or build on my parents' property. There were so many things. And there were moments in the hospital where, we literally couldn't plan for later that day because things were changing so often. And for somebody like me, who's a planner, who's an organizer, like, that's crazy. I really needed to learn some hard lessons and everything. I needed to learn how to depend on other people because I'm usually the type of person who jumps into, a hard time, like, my city being on fire. I'm the first one to jump up and volunteer, and I had to learn how to sit back and accept help. And that was hard. And then, just when you are going through a trauma and you are living through it, and it's acute every day, you're in survival mode. And survival mode, for anybody that's lived it, and I know many of the people who are listening probably know what I'm talking about, to slow yourself down to the point where you literally just need to focus on living to the next moment where you can be okay is hard. And when that happens over and over and over again, and you think that you've gotten to this plateau or the top of the mountain, and you get up there and you look and there's just so much more to go. Yep. And you set these benchmarks and you set these goals, and for me, the biggest one was when we finally get home, when we finally get back into our house. And as you can see, I'm in my beautiful brand spanking new bedroom in this modern farmhouse, and literally right before we moved in, my husband and I separated. Like we couldn't make it.
Yeah. That's
So
a
that-
lot to,
yeah.
it's a lot of things. Like your list, like any one of those things could drive someone to suicide or break up a marriage or end everything. Like, and you've been through all of that. Like, one, I see you, and you were like one of the most resilient women I've ever met in my entire life. What, like, so let's talk about the recovery period between the house burning down and moving into this beautiful new space. Because like, this is your dream home. Like you designed, like I see your barn's door. I see it. I'm envious. I want one. Like I see your dream kitchen. I love your style. Talk to me a little bit about the process. Because I know like right before you moved in, things with your husband got not great. But what was it like in the immediate aftermath, and then like getting up to the point where like construction is happening, now we're thinking about moving back in? Like what kind of emotions were you feeling during that time, and how did you process and keep yourself sane, because that's a lot of action happening all at once?
Yeah, it is a lot. It was a lot all at once. And I think going through the medical stuff with my son helped put the house stuff into perspective. Because I remember saying and thinking at one point, and I still feel it now, I would burn my house down 100 times over than have to go through the fear of losing my child again. Like, hands down, like, it's, I hate to say it's just stuff, because honestly, that phrase is triggering for me. And I know a lot of other people who have lost everything, but that, it's like, there's a roadmap, like, it's happened before, people have gone through it, and there's communities around it, but, having a child in of itself, if they're healthy, that part in of itself is just, for me anyways, it was traumatizing, taking on this new role of mother, and I can't look out for myself as number one anymore. I have to put him first in everything. But for me, the way that I deal and the way that I cope and move forward is diagnose the problem and find the solution. Don't dwell on the fact that shit is shitty. Yeah, okay, like have a moment, take a moment to like cry and feel all the feelings, but don't get lost in that. And it's been a struggle all along, because at my core, I am cut from different cloth than my husband. And no disrespect to him, because I do love him still. But, I'm made from Kevlar, he's made from construction paper, and I had to carry him through everything, as well as look out for myself and my son and, our immediate family, who is feeling a lot of it too. So it was a struggle, and it takes a toll. And when you do have the burden of looking out for yourself like that, it's so freaking hard to make time for yourself, because any moment that you make time for yourself, you almost feel guilty for putting yourself first. But it's so important to do that. And so that's really why hiking for me actually became my core part of therapy. And when we finally got back into a house, we rented a home out on the coast in Bodega Bay, just on a whim, we were like, can we do this? Like, why the hell not? Insurance is paying for it. Let's do it. And so just, regardless of how much I was able to get out of the house, I positioned ourselves to be surrounded by nature and the healing power of the ocean and everything. And that made a difference. On days when I wasn't able to make a plan, I would just go outside and just breathe in the air, listen to the foghorn, and that was enough.
I love that. And how is your son doing these days?
He's in full-on terrible 2 mode.
Awesome. Fantastic.
He's driving everyone insane. His Uncle Kenny is looking after him right now, bless his heart. And we're dealing. He's an incredibly social person, and we are having to face the reality that we are likely going to have to keep him out of preschool for at least the first half of the year because of COVID, because he is high risk. Any respiratory, anything, and it's basically a death wish. So
yeah, that's a whole different set of considerations, let alone like healthy kids, it's a risky, let alone, somebody who's been through as much stuff as your son has. Ooh, so one of the best gifts I got on the road last year, and I'm going to try not to cry because it like radically changed my life. And these are the words that came out of your mouth. We were sitting in the van. We shut down the REI parking lot. We were talking and you're telling me your whole story and everything about your son and everything about the fire and everything, like you were in Bodega Bay in that house at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember you talking about just like being able to exhale. And I'd love for you to articulate that moment or moments where you had finally been able to just like, after everything you've been through, because we're all, and this, I actually changed part of my presentation to include this because it resonated with me so strongly, because you were just like, yeah, I felt like I could finally breathe again. Like it felt like a big exhale and I just like dropped all this weight. And I was like, oh my God, like I didn't have the language for the feeling that I had in the time that between my assault and when I told Barry. And for me, telling Barry was the big exhale, the first of many big exhales. But I went on to go and like tell like in my talk, I was like, we're all running around here holding our breath in one way or another, maybe literally, maybe verbally, but whether that's work or school or family stuff or money or jobs or whatever, like there's a lot of stuff that makes us just like, and we like that creates disease in our minds and our bodies and stuff like that. So like, what was the moment where you were finally just like, and have you had ones since then, since we last talked about it?
I wish I could remember what exact moment I was referencing when I told you that.
Any moment's good.
There have been a few. The most recent one that comes to mind, I mean, I just went on a backpacking trip just last weekend. And, after being, quarantined, sheltering in place and not having childcare and being full-time mom and doing the move and the parks finally opening up, and I knew what I needed. Like I'm at this point, I know what makes me feel better. It's disconnecting, going off the grid, grabbing my dog and my pack and just leaving. And when I got my stuff into the car, I drove. I went up to the Trinity Alps, which I had never been there before, up in Northern California. And I got to the trail 5.5 or 6 hours later. And I didn't get started on my hike until about 4 p.m., which was later than I anticipated. So I didn't make it all the way on the trail. I am the world's slowest hiker, by the way. I am ridiculous. But I was making my way up the mountain, and I don't know exactly what hit me. It was hard, and all of a sudden I just lost it and just started crying. Just let it all out, and it's just the moments that I know that you've described and everything. It was like that. It was like, I don't know where this is coming from. I mean, I kind of do, but like it just takes over. And I think I think it was only like a mile in or something where I just broke down.
Perfect. Get it done. Let's get to work. I got feelings to hike.
And I just realized that even though I was just starting, I was so tired, you know, just mentally. And I just started thinking about all this stuff and processing. And I found this perfect campsite that was halfway up to the destination, only 2.5 miles in. And I was just like, you know what? It's 7 o'clock. I'm done. I'm done. And so I just set up and I got my water boiling for my dinner, and I sat back, and the mosquitoes were buzzing around, and I looked at my dog, and I just took a breath. Honestly, it was one of those moments. You exhale and you're just like, I'm exactly where I need to be, and I am doing exactly what I need to do for myself, and everything in my world is going to be better because of it.
And I think that's such an important lesson, especially, and like the comments are blowing up. They're like, you're a super mom. You're one tough mom. Like everybody's like so impressed with everything you've survived and how you've been able to manage. And I think especially, I'm not a mother, but like I consider hiking my feelings my baby. So that's the closest I'll get. But I feel like it is just a known fact. Like we as women in particular put everybody else first. We don't prioritize ourselves. And then when you find the time and space to do that, it's just like the best thing in the whole world. I love that you know what works for you. I love that you know that you needed to go have a backpacking trip and you could like let it all out. Like there's so many people that don't even know how to care for themselves. When did you discover that hiking was your thing? And like, how did you know, like, was there a certain trip that you went on and you're like, okay, now moving forward, if I ever need to feel better, this is what I'm doing? Like, what was your process on identifying that hiking was a good way for you to work through this stuff?
It honestly didn't happen until recently. I would say after the fires. Before the fires, in probably the 6 months leading up to it, or even 8 months or so, I had been accumulating gear. I knew that I wanted to hike. I had a suspicion that it was going to be a thing that I liked. Going back to a trip that I took a while back to Europe, I went on this, I went on a road trip in Scotland, and when I got to Edinburgh, I went on a pub crawl. The least likely place you'd get inspiration. But I met this guy who had just walked from Bristol up to Bristol, like southwest England, all the way up to Edinburgh, Scotland. And I was so fascinated by this guy. Number one, he didn't realize how hot he was because he had just like lost a bunch of weight and he was like freaking gorgeous. But number two, I learned his story and everything. I was so interested in this idea of like walking long distances that I started researching through hikes, and I was like, I want to do this. And so I was making plans to do this through hike on the Oregon coast. And I told my husband, I was like, this is something that I want to do. And I was making these plans. It was going to be this thing that I was doing for me. I didn't tell him that, but he was like, that sounds great. I think we should do this and we should do that. And I was like, oh, okay, this is our thing now. All right, that's fine. And then I got pregnant and then the fires. And so we obviously, all the gear was gone. All the plans were out the window because I was about to be a mom. So tabled that one. But after the fires, it was an interesting moment because we got insurance money to replace stuff, right? And so I was so anxious to get all my camping gear and hiking gear replaced. And Cole was like, my husband was like, it's your thing. I was like, okay, it's my thing. So I was like, I reclaimed the thing. And then I started going out on day hikes with Apollo. Like, I got the toddler pack and he just loved it. Like, it was cool. It was our moments. For a while we were doing hikes every Friday. We would go out and have a little adventure. And yeah, I had only gone backpacking once at that point in my life, and I don't want to say I hated it, but it wasn't the most pleasurable experience, and I think it was because I was with a group of people. And so once I knew hiking was my becoming more of my thing, I made plans to have my first backpacking trip solo with my dog. Yeah, my backpacking buddy is my dog Barnaby. But I went into the Sierras for a few days, and that's when I knew. Like, this is gonna be my thing for a while. This is exactly what I need.
Oh, that's so great. So the next portion of our circle or of our program here is to do our group gratitude circle. So before we jump into that, anybody in the Zoom chat that wants to share what you're grateful for, please pop on your video. And Melissa, where can people find you online, and what are you working on now that you're really excited about?
I am the kind of person that always has at least one project going. I am a writer, and so I'm working on my second novel right now. And so that's keeping me busy. And I also have a nonprofit that I've been wanting to start up for years. Like, I've had this idea for so many years, and I'm starting to think like now might be the time to pull the trigger on that. So more info on that later, but but if anybody's
Nice.
looking for more on who I am, what I do, you can go to melissageissinger.com or survivaloversurrender.com. That's sort of my active blog, and I am also open to submissions on there for anybody that wants to share their survival stories.
I love that. Awesome. And what are you grateful for?
I am grateful for my house. This has been a long journey, and I love it so much. I buy it flowers.
I'll take it out to dinner. I want to date my house.
More reliable than anybody else right now. So.
Hey, there you go. Standing strong and tall. I'm into it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Michelle, what are you thankful for?
I want to say I'm thankful for, I know I mentioned my son before, but I'm thankful for my son. He's a motivation on why I want to get better. As far as self-care, medically, and all that stuff. And I've also done I consider Justin my hiking buddy also. I don't know if you guys can see a picture.
Yay! I love that.
Yeah, that's in Seminole Canyon over here by Del Rio, Texas. So he's considered my hiking buddy too. So I'm really thankful for my son. He's taught me so much, and I'm just enjoy learning so much from him. So yeah.
I love that. That's great. Vicki, what are you thankful for?
Today I am thankful for my ingenuity in my new thing. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I have these fantastic looking drinks every night. And one of the things, some of you know that I've been wanting to drink less alcohol, and all of my drinks are alcohol free. They're basically sparkling water, a juice, a citrus, and an herb. And that's the formula that I've kind of settled on with these great cocktails that are delicious. So what I'm drinking here right now is sparkling water with orange mango, with a splash of orange mango juice, a bunch of lemons, and in honor of tonight's chapter, the herb of choice is sage, and it is fantastic.
So will you be the bartender for mocktails at the Hiking My Feelings Wilderness Wellness Center when you come to visit?
You got it. Twist my arm.
I got plenty of sage. I got plenty of sage. Jason, what are you thankful for today?
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm actually thankful for the fact that one thing that I like about coming to the chats is when everybody shares, it's different from sometimes a lot of conversations I've had in the past where everybody's almost always busy trying to one up each other. It sucks when you're trying to be expressive and somebody says, "Oh, well, that's nothing," that like this one time, and it's like, well, fuck, I'm not gonna share anymore. And I'm pretty sure I've seen a couple nods here. There's people like, fuck, I hate that shit. But it's one of those things where I come here to listen. I come here to shut up until maybe I have something to input. But I like how I can be in this chat, these campfires, and everybody just kind of is like, "Oh my god, that's absolutely terrible. Please go on. I have a question for you. I have something, curiosity." Just kind of like I can kind of relate to what it's like to see a family member. Like when my pops had cancer, I had to take him to multiple treatments and just watch him go through that process. Like you had to take your son Melissa to surgeries, and you're just it sucks having to go through that process and watch somebody you love go through that, experience all that firsthand. And we all have our own unique experiences with it. So thank you for sharing. Really, that's what I'm grateful. Stop one-upping each other. Listen.
I love it. Yeah, no one-upping here. Mary, what are you thankful for?
Hearing the story about your son just kind of got me thinking back to some medical traumas that I've had with two of my kids, and just being incredibly grateful for their good health right now. So I'm that's what I'm thankful for tonight.
I love that. Jess, what are you thankful for?
Thank you. So I wanted to share a little bit about one of my stories for my gratitude, so that Kathryn can hear it later on the replay, and know that what she's doing is, she already knows this because it's her cause and her passion, but just a little bit more knowledge of that what she's doing is really works for people. I back in 2011 and then again in 2012, I checked myself in for what's called a 5150 in California 3 times. A 5150 is where you are a threat to yourself or others by the police standards, and they can pick you up if somebody else calls on you, or you can check yourself in. I checked myself in 3 times in that period of time, and I'm so grateful I did. I was suicidal for 6 months. I was hopeless. I was told, go find a job, it was right after my divorce, go find a job, go find a place to live. And I was so hopeless. I didn't feel I was qualified for anything. So looking for a job was just ridiculous. You know what I mean? When you just feel like crap about yourself, how can you believe in yourself enough to get a job and sell yourself? And then, so of course, looking for a place to live made it hard, because how can you get a place to live? I was in the Bay Area at the time. So how can you find a place to live unless you can get this big shot job, which I couldn't even feel like I was qualified to get a low shot job, let alone a big shot job to afford the home I needed in the Bay Area. So I ended up in a homeless shelter. And again, super grateful for that experience. It humbled me. It gave me a broader horizon from which to understand life and to connect with people. I found the Center for Spiritual Living in San Jose, and they brought me into their community. They had me be an usher like the second time I went. Oh, we like you. Here, smile at people every Sunday and escort them to their seats. And that brought me immediately into community. And, you know, part of my story at that time was getting a therapist and getting a psychiatrist and taking my medication regularly so that I could, as other people have spoken about, so that I could process the stuff that was going on in my brain. And the reason why I'm sharing all this today is not because it's like, woe is me, I've had hard times. I'm sharing this today because I'm known for my hope. I'm known for my positive attitude. I am known for things are going to get better. It's going to be all right. Here's another way. We can do this. And so I want to tell anybody out there that is hopeless that it's not the end, and I'm far from the end of my journey. There are days when I don't want to get out of bed. There are days when I don't feel good about myself and I don't believe in myself and I just feel like shit. But you know what? I have hope, and that gets me out of bed every single day. And so I just want to tell anybody out there, I care where you are, but it doesn't matter where you are. You can find hope again. You can stare in the mirror and force yourself to smile and love yourself again. You just got to start somewhere, you guys, just a little kernel of hope and build off of that. That's what I wanted to say.
Ooh, dropping mics, throwing them down. I love your hope. I'm gonna like raise the roof for that. It's so good, man. I'm glad that you found hope, because this community would not be what it is without your presence, Jess. So I'm very thankful that you're here. That's what I'm grateful for today, that everybody here is here despite everything they've been through, because nobody in this chat has had an easy life. So thank you guys so much for sharing that. So tomorrow, tomorrow's gonna be dope. So we have, what's today? Yeah, tomorrow. Gary Ware is leading a improv exercise where we build stories together. He is the founder of Breakthrough Play. He was my improv instructor. He's basically Yoda. So like have your journal ready, bring a pen, because this guy's got one-liners that will radically change the way you live your life, like through and through. We also have Shanti Hodges, who's the founder of Hike It Baby. So if there's anybody out there that's looking to do more adventures with their little ones, Shanti literally wrote the book on it. She hiked the Appalachian Trail with a kid on her back from Georgia to Maine, hiked that trail with a baby in her backpack. Like, this chick is legit. And also Marianetta Deffrin is a Girl Trek squad leader, or a Girl Trek leader, and Girl Trek is an organization that works to get more Black people outside, and so her mission is to get more Black families outside. So tomorrow we're going to learn how to remember how to play with Gary, because grown-ups forget how to play, and then we're going to talk about what it's like to adventure with your littles, because just because you have kids doesn't mean that you can't be outdoorsy. And I'm just really excited about everything we've got going on tomorrow. So thank you guys so much for being here. If you're on YouTube, thank you for joining us. Quick reminder about donations. If you got anything out of tonight, which I hope you did, you can donate at hikingmyfeelings.org/give. That is where you can make a one-time donation. If you want to join us for the rest of the Zoom chats this week, so you can ask questions, get answers, get some great prizes from our sponsors and partners, then you can join us at hikingmyfeelings.org/campfire. We have day passes for $20 a day, or you can do a $100 donation for an all access pass. And we do have a couple of the VIP campfire kits left. We are shipping those out tomorrow. So for everybody that signed up for our VIP all access pass, your box is on the way. Thank you so much for your patience. COVID just completely derailed all of the shipments and stuff from our partners and their supplies. So we really appreciate your patience with that. So if anybody out there wants a campfire kit, go to hikingmyfeelings.org/campfire, check out the VIP all access pass, and you can join us there. So if you're on YouTube tonight, thank you so much for being here. And if you are on the Zoom chat, stick around, we'll do our post show, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for being here.